do not use Blackboard. Even I don't use Blackboard that often. But first I'll discuss a bit about two remaining topics on which we are going to have some deliberation because there will be questions. Okay, hence you listen to me carefully, and if you have any queries, you can also have a deliberation. Yesterday, hopefully, Manas, your teacher, my research scholar, could have engaged you to certain extent, and he has also said that you have participated in the discussion. Okay, so it was basically about global representation of India or Indian culture, like that. Okay, so he might have brought up that cultural imperialism issue, that snakes armors and all the representation of India in global media, right? So that is also one issue, but prior to it we may discuss about that issues, representation of India in global media, that will come. But prior to it, what is important is the syllabus. So two very important topic is Indian foreign policy, and also one is policy aspect. So that is being put in that syllabus, and hence we thought of discussing, deliberating on it. So policies, about public policies here. So but when we talk about foreign policy, this is also policy, we call it a public policy only, but it is a bit different because it has a foreign connotation, right? So whether it will fall into that public policy or not, that is also a question mark. But when you say public policies, basically we say all kind of policies, regulatory policies. If you see policies related to environment, pollution, GST, RTI, then you talk about different schemes of the government, like housing schemes are there, then also Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana and all. So everything will actually come into the public policy that spectrum. So when we say public policy, first it has got this two words, like we have public and a policy. Then when it's a public is basically mass of people having that commonality, or group of people having that commonality. We say that group of people, not a mass, or a mass having a commonality. That is what public denotes. And the policy aspect basically denotes the course of action, or is action and the choice of the government, what the government choose to do and choose not to do. That's what we can say. And having an intended aim. So its policy has a pursuit. We call it a pursuit. Its policy has a goal, and also has some objectives, you may say. Okay, and policy always starts with a problem. So without a problem, we cannot even comprehend a policy, the importance of policy, comprehend the significance of formulating a policy. So its policy will start with a problem. So, first is the very concept and the definition of the policy is important. That is what a course of action taken by the government, or decision commitments taken by the government uh, in a financial year, or maybe in their tenure, uh, for the public interest. That's a very simple definition of understanding public policy. Course of actions having a public interest taken by the government. Okay, certain decision, certain commitment towards the public. Okay, and then we see the problem factor. When we say problem is the insinuation factor, because of the policy based on which we think about formulating a policy. When you say problem, is there any issue? Okay, so you are feeling hot, tired, exhausted. So, okay, so that's a Uh, when you talk about the problem is basically a social problem. It may be economic problem, right? So this problem has to be identified, and it has to be clearly uh, found out. So when we talk about the problem, identification of the problem, and then you see the available alternative is the first very step of making the policy. Right. So, if we talk about the making of the policy and the process of making of the policy, very briefly, I will ponder on it. So, we say it will start with identification of the problem and also possible alternative to that problem. And we need to deal with that problem very clearly. And many a time, problem is not that clear. hmm, in front of us, and that's why there is a possibility of policy failure when there is no clarity of the problem, understanding of the problem. Clarity of goals and objective is also very difficult, and hence there is a possibility of public policy failure. And then we talk about the intended action of the government relating to that particular problem, and that is basically formulation of the policy. But prior to formulation of the policy, government need to publicize the problem in such a way that there are some alternatives comes up. So after identification of the problem, government bodies or pressure groups, there are also different actors which will be contributing to public policy making. This is not only the government. There are different actors which will be contributing to policy making. Like we have the pressure groups is one interest group, various interest group. We have judiciary, legislature, executive. These are the three organs of the government. Even the citizens, okay, will also be contributing to public policy making, right? So when we talk about different, even the bureaucrats at time, they will also work as a pressure group in terms of public policy formulation. So all will have a stake in public policy making, and will they will develop objectives, different objectives of the problem. Like looking at the problem, they will develop how to deal with the problem. So objectives will be kind of alternatives. So how to deal with the problem, what can be the possible solution of the problems, what can be the alternative of the problems, and based on the findings of alternatives, you see, they look for legitimacy of those of the comprehension of the policy. When we talk about the legitimacy, in the sense that they will actually make people accept that okay, this problem do exist, the problems we are talking of do exist, and we need a solution. So that is a kind of legitimacy where you actually find the role of media. So media will actually monitor the problem, how severity it is, any kind of problem if you take up, and also the intensity and scope of the problem. That's what media can do, and then media can take action on that particular problem. Okay, so media's role come in getting public legitimacy of that problem, and then we go for policy implementation. In policy implementation also, media has certain role in terms of displaying the repercussions, the process of implementations, the consequence of implementation, etc., the outcome. And then we talk about policy evaluation. So in that process, right from the identifications to the evaluation, media has certain role, but media's role is more acute in the monitoring part, in the legitimizing of a problem, of an issue, of an alternative from the public. So once there are problems, there are some problems, there are many problems. So you will create a demand on the basis of the problems taken. So in the law legislature also, demand is being created about a policy, and based on the vote that issue gets, there are multiple issues, and there are also alternative which may come up, alternative to that problem. So sometimes you see, we also need to look at the cost benefit at the very floor of the legislature, to find out the effectiveness of policy implementation. So that will also be very important part. But if you look into the policy formulation and policy implementation, it will start from the problem. Okay, then we see that there are some uh, way to understand a problem in terms of scope, in terms of intensity. When you talk about the scope, is how large the problem is. Scope is all about how it has affected the population, what extent it has affected the population, and how many subsets of population, how many groups are being affected. So more groups are being affected by one problem, so there is a severity of case, so we need a policy. So scope is broader, there is more mm, chance to come up with the policy. So scope to identify a problem, and scope of the problem Mm, and not scope to identify. Scope of a problem is also one very important. Um, you see, trigger, or that is also a push for the policy formulation. Then we have this called intensity. Intensity is more about the psychographic element, psychology and all. So how that problem has affected the people psychologically. So many a time problem has affected you, but you may not feel that problem. Some problem has affected even the inflation and all. So every day price hike and all, so we raise our voice, but unless and until we feel that intensity, there will not be any kind of policy even. So there is a tax, even there is tax hike and all, unless and until so we actually feel the intensity, the price rise of gas cylinder and all. So it all depends upon the intensity. So how that problem emotionally, psychologically uh, affect one group of people, not even one, multiple group of people, and that will determine the importance of a policy, of bringing a policy. Okay, then we have the duration, which is important, for how long that problem has been affecting you. Okay, one problem you have identified, and the duration of the problem is also very important, for how long it has been affecting you. So, like you say that more than 1 year, more than even 5 years, it has been affecting you. You say that women are not safe, not for even last 5 years, for last 10 years are not safe. So you have statistics. Then yeah, there has to have a policy in terms of strict vigilance of police, and so we need to have some alternative. If you say that women are not safe, and in the street, on the street women are not safe, then we need to have some policies to protect them, right? So accordingly, we see some alternatives we need to make. Problem is there, what are the alternative? We can have more street lights, we can have like a stringent security mechanism. Okay, we can also have some kind of surveillance at domestic front. Okay, and that domestic front is different. It is not related to that. You cannot relate to women like um, work outside the premise, or it is outside certain territory or all. It's all about their empowerment. But how to ensure safety in terms of public transport, availability of public transport, and a timing, specific timing. So you have different kind of schemes which might also come into your mind when you actually think about solving the problem of violence against women, or any kind of safety issues that women are facing. The robbery, there are also, you see, even killing of women in that issue. So you can find out if there is an honor killing, that you need to find out what might be the alternative honor killing. Is all related to honor, related to caste, related to religion, related to class, right? So that might be insinuation factor, the trigger. So you need to work on making people aware then. So that might be a public policy, right? So in that way, you see the intensity, and for how long, intensity of the public that problem, and problem which will be for public interest, and how long it is being affecting uh, group of people. Okay, so that is important. Duration is also very important to understand. Then who are the actors who are actually associated with making of the public policy? Because most of the time we talk about various hurdles of public policy, right? When you say hurdles, there are many hurdles. We say that failure of public policy because of the poor design. Why there is a poor design? Just because there is not coordination among different government departments and agencies. Because when you talk about implementation, it is all about formulation. When you identify the problem, you also legitimize by the public. So public involvement is also necessary. Media will go for uh, carrying out an audit about the problem. So what public feels, how much they are affected and all. Once it is legitimized, you will go for formulating with the objective, then you will have to implement. But after implementation, you see that there is a policy failure, and policy failure often are not reported by media. So because of different issue, there are different pressures that media are being dealing with. So but you see, one is the one factor regarding the policy failure is the poor design of the policy. And why there is a poor design? Just because of lack of coordinating agencies, or lack of coordination and cooperation among different agencies. Because a policy, it is not only from stem from or rise from one particular agency. So there has to have collaborations and cooperation from different government agencies. So there has to have a mutual understanding uh, among different government agencies. And when that is lacking, you actually see the design of the policy tend to be very poor. And then we also see the administrative will and motivation is always lacking at times, and that might be the region. And hierarchical and centralized that system of administration may be one region of policy failure. And lack of public involvement, when public will not legitimize the problem, but problem is there, it is not publicized that much, and public even do not know that there is a policy, but government has already made a policy thinking that it will be for public interest, but there is not much public involvement. Let's suppose when NEP comes, so it was also a kind of, you say, sure that the we also contributed, so our point of views, right? So public involvement in policy is important. Not necessarily public involvement will make a very robust policy and a very successful and accomplished policy, and there will not be any kind of demerits. But you can at least say that, okay, public is involved, you have given parameters of carrying out this policy, and you have given your point of view, so we are implementing it. So in that way, government will always find themselves in a safer side, that okay, so so we do not have much stake, because it's all about public policy, public has involved, they have given their inputs, we are there as a formulating and implementing agency. So whatever budget we legislature has approved, and whatever public wants us to do, so we are doing it, because it is all about good for the citizens good. And at time, if citizen is, you also see citizen has approved and citizen has involved in policy making, so government stake is being reduced, right? So that is one thing. And also you see many a time that bureaucratic red tapeism and also bottleneck, that might be the reason of policy failure, because they usually hold, bureaucrats usually hold all the data and all, and at times they do not share this data. uh, they are not willing to share the data with public, and that might be with also different agencies, that might also be a region of policy failure. So lack of you see political will and lack of political intervention may also be the region of policy failure. So these are some of the regions of policy failure. Then you see the actors which are actually involved in policy making. There are different actors apart from, you see, the legislature, judiciary. We usually say legislature, they actually they bring the administration into the scrutiny, right? All the administrative laws, policies are supposed to be under the examination and scrutiny of the legislature, right? And they will approve the budget, okay, for any policy implementation. And when you talk about the judiciary has also a very important role in terms of you see, policy formulation and implementation. Judiciary will interpret all the law and all the policies, and anything in the policy is not going with the provision of the constitution will be nullified by the judiciary. That's what the judiciary will do basically. And executive is usually like, they will be implementing, they will getting the funds approved from the legislature and will implement. And there are various committees I have already discussed in during Indian Parliament, the class on Indian Parliament. So there are committees which will also be helping in implementing the public policy, because they'll scrutinize each and every paper's data, as you can 20 200 papers, 300 papers. So at times it is also different for journalists to read 200, 300 papers, and then you quickly make an assessment about its impact on the public or on the citizen. So but that's what you see the that parliamentary reporting is all about. So parliamentary reporting also involves this policy reporting, but you see, policy reporting has sometimes different uh, nature than parliamentary reporting. But parliamentary reporting is very broad. It will include the policy reporting because most of the policies are discussed in parliament, and you need to have understanding, clear understanding of appropriation bill, budgetary procedure, finance bill. You need to have clear understanding about institutions and uh, how the procedures works actually, and also very important skill, and that is a high speed note taking, skill is important for parliamentary reporting, and even for policy reporting it is important, because in legislature forum, in the forum of legislature, you will always be, you see, always be um found one to make your legislators or even the ministries and various departments, MLAs, MPs discussing about policies only. Okay, so this is important. And then we see some of the policies. When you say we have regulatory policies, so we briefly discuss about the typology of policies. Regulatory policy is one policy. So it tries to regulate, this kind of policies try to regulate individual, organization, and existing institution in the society. So these are basically regulatory policies. Like you see that GST is a kind of regulatory policies making businesses registered. Okay, so that's a kind of regulatory policy. So you can also give example of other regulatory policy. We talk about environmental policy regarding, you see, road safety related policy, various traffic rules, and pollution control and industrial pollution control under Central Pollution Control Board, under Ministry of Environmental and Forest and Climate Change. So you see different regulatory policies are being adopted. TRI, that is a Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. So that is a regulatory body. Even the policies which come up from TI is um, are also some of the regulatory policies. So regulatory policies will try to regulate the institutions, the individuals, as well as the existing institutions, the organizations, uh, mm, of the society. That's how we understand. We also have one policy that is called distributive policy. Distributive policies are basically the freebies, we say. Freebies is a term used mostly by media. Okay, so we have distributive policies like welfare policies, where the purpose is to distribute the benefit of the policies without transferring resources from one group to other. So, in order to create a egalitarian society or create equity in the society, government will distribute certain benefit to certain section of the people without transferring resources from one section. So, hence, we also see there are policies like Aishman Bharat. We have and we have midday meal scheme to provide nutrition to children, as well as to make 100% attendance of children. Ayushman Bharat to make healthcare available for poor, and making the healthcare service to the reach of the public. So like this kind of services, you can say, even you get free distribution of ration and all. Okay, you talk about PDS system. Hmm. Free distribution of ration, food grains, etc. are some of the welfare schemes. We call it, these are distributive policies. We also have redistributive policies. So when you say redistributive policies, these are basically policies that will transfer resources from one section of population to other section of population. Okay, it's all about transferring resources to create an equity. higher income tax to those who have higher income is a kind of redistributive policies. Reservation is also redistributive policies at the expense of other. So in try to create an equity, these are some of the redistributive policies we see. There are many you can find out. We also have capitalization policies. So that is related to, you see, industrial growth and asset building. Some policies are being taken. We talk about Startup India. We talk of this Made in India. We have that Bharat Mala, Sagar Mala, PLI, the production, that incentive link schemes are there. These are some of the that we say capitalization, or capitalization policy. It's all about building the asset of the society. So it in order to ensure economic growth, in order to increase the investment, and also to improve the productivity of the existing institution, we have certain capitalization policy. So here also you think bringing about the issues related to subsidies to the capitalist. So we see, but the government can also give them subsidy or even tax exemption to you say to bring in industry complex and all. So these are also some kind of capital asset, building capital asset, and also try to improve the economy. This kind of policies are being taken. We also see productive incentive link scheme is there, through which we promote the electronic goods making of mobile phone and all. This kind of scheme has come. We talk about smart city schemes, Bharat Mala, Sagar Mala schemes are there. All are capitalization scheme. We have ethical policies. Ethical policies are related to establishment of correct policies, establishment of correct practices by the government, and to create transparency and accountability of what they are delivering. So these ethical policies are related to RTI. We have RTI policy. This is an ethical policy, you see, making government accountable to the people, making people access information, except the classified designation information. Most of the information people can access. So how far, that is a question, but okay, people can access information. RTI is there. Whistleblower Act, protecting those who are exposing the corruption. That is also another ethical policy. Then also we have in America too, there are different kind of. So we have many. Okay, so we will not to go deep into different kind of policies. You can also go through numerous policies come under these typologies and types I have discussed. So we have redistributive, distributive, regulatory policy, capitalization policy, and ethical policy. So these are the five typologies of policy by you see, Thomas Die. Okay, he has given these typologies of policy, five typologies of policy that government is usually deals with. DYE. So yeah. Uh, So, apart from that, what is important for you? How media is covering the policy in terms of creating awareness among the people, and role of media in covering the public policy is important. To a certain extent, you know, but it is also important to understand that when we talk about the policies, government always present policies with their heavy-handed PR campaign and then press releases. Okay, and that has somehow triggered media to celebrate some of the policies and create debate on the policies which are being heavily advertised. Okay, so in a way, to most of the extent, journalist or a press, or you see the media will also become reduced. Media become reduced to a echo chamber, or you say the chamber of state propaganda. So many a time they don't go for analyzing the policy. They will celebrate and debate the policies which are being advertised by media. First, in terms of selecting the policies, they are being very particular. Which are highly advertised by government, so they will select those policies. They will debate upon those policies. Okay, so that is one thing. And you also see that there is information spin. So at times, so when media deal with the policies, they may not also get the actual data, and may not keep themselves abreast of the structural flaws and the actual impact. Because when you talk about the policy, policy doesn't have an end. The policy process doesn't have an end. So once it is implemented, when we talk about it doesn't have an end, in the sense we talk about the implementation of the policy. Once the policy is implemented, it has already started, and it's a process. It will not end unless and until the fund has withdrawn. It will not even end if you see uh, the fund exhausted. So it's a continuation of the process, and media will always monitor those policies which are heavily funded. So it is also for their interest, they will go for those policies. And when we talk about the distributive policies, these are of highly interest for media because they can actually polarize the debate. Okay, so we see the freebies, subsidies are some of the name that media has come up with related to welfare policies, and these freebies are also term criticized that in a way, like brought in by opposition party, and for even you see um, government and the ruler. So these policies, welfare policies, are some of the policies and plunk for developmental plunk. So they can create a polarization between the ruler as well as the oppositions in terms of development versus freebies. So in that way, if we talk about the importance of the policies, the kind of selection of the policies, media is also a bit biased, and media is pressurized also, heavily pressurized because of the economic constraint, because of the financial constraint, editorial constraint, and hence uh, at times they could not deal with a very say objective reporting. And when we talk about objective reporting, many a time it is also questionable what we talk about objective reporting. So I'll come into it. Then we see that at times uh, there are certain policies, like we see that these freebies and all, even distributive policies, are often taken by media as some policies which are that's associated with the leadership. They don't analyze policies as such, but they will always associate policies with the leaders, right? So that is also one way that media deal with policies. You'll see. So policies are associated with the leaders, so they will give a personality trait to the policies in that way. Okay, so whenever you talk about the distributive policies, NEP and all, and these cannot create angry evening debate, and hence you see NEPs are not discussed. National education policies are not discussed. So because they want certain policies which can create high decibel debate in the TV room, and identity related policies, some ethical policies, K and all, it can create high volume debate in the newsroom, and hence media will always cover those policies more. And there are digital platforms, you can even see the Wire, News Laundry, and Article 14, and even News Minutes. They will audit the actual implementation of the policies, and they will have their uh, own report on the policies. But apart from those independent media house, mainstream media is always biased in terms of reporting the policies. And we also have redistributive policies. Media will never discuss more about redistributive policies. Okay, and we can talk about this capitalization policies, which media will highlight always, because these are related to development. We can say infrastructure growth, infrastructure development. It is being highlighted. So even if there is a failure, it is being highlighted sometimes. Okay, if media is not working as a chambered one or a chamber of state propaganda, it will also highlight any failure of capitalization policy. Huh. That is one thing. But you also see that when you talk about Startup India, what is being highlighted in Startup India only the funding approach and funding proposals are being highlighted, that we have got many funds. But there is also cash burning and lack of profitability of Startup India is not being highlighted. So in that way, media has also worked as a, you see, chambered, like, institution in that way, and always go for propagating what state wants in terms of policy reporting. Okay, so this is briefly about policy reporting. It will come when monitoring the policy and legitimizing the public demands and public you see uh, that interest at times. Okay, so we can then go to this foreign policy. Okay, foreign policy is also very important to understand, and you know about Indian foreign policy. When we say foreign policy, uh, Parliament, many a times we say that has a role, legislature has a role in terms of foreign policy making. But Parliament also work as a rubber stamp at times in terms of foreign policies. So we have different incidences over the years. So regarding the role of the Parliament in foreign policy making. So first is the concept, which is important. You need to understand the concept of foreign policy. Foreign policy is basically a course of action um, or based on determinants and principle of government in dealing with other countries. That's how we understand foreign policy. So the kind of course of actions are based on the principalities or determinants dealing with other countries. India have their own factors, we have our own factors, like we have some economic factor, historical factors, we have geographical factors, we also have you see political traditions, we have international factors. Like that way we have ideological factor which will determine how the foreign policy will be. Okay, so when we talk about the geography, so geography is a basic concern for security, and foreign policy is something which will always deal with the security aspect. Okay, so when we also say what kind of principles are there, principles also determine the kind of foreign policy. First is the geography, geographical factors. We talk about the range of Himalayas, then we have this vast coastline. Um, in three sides that determines the foreign policy how it should be regarding our naval base, okay, and regarding our extended policy with extended neighborhood how it should be. So geography happens to be one determining factors to Indian foreign policy in terms of our bilateral ties, in terms of the increased road connectivity, then also about the trade, about the port facilities and all the kind of negotiations that we need to have with foreign countries. Okay, so this is one factor. We also have economic factor. When you say economic factor, economic factor is related to the investment that we can invite nowadays, our economic factor. And you see that once Atal Bihari Vajpayee in legislature said that foreign policy will not change with the change of government and the leadership. Although when he became the premier, we actually see that foreign policy has got some change to pragmatism and strength. So we had a very ideological basis of foreign policy right from the very beginning. The basis of foreign policy was ideological because we get to find liberalism, realism, and also Gandhism culminate in foreign policy dealings. So we also believe Kautilya's realism. Kautilya's realism, war is also important in order to create a safeguard, create a zone. So we believe in that. But Nehru was idealist, so he believed in Westminster's model and he believed in liberalism. And even Gandhi was also an idealist. Gandhism has also got kind of influence in foreign policy. So we started with that ideological base, and that ideological determinants have also resulted adopting non-alignment. So when you do non-alignment, this is a very ideological, you say, um, a role of India, or ideological attire that we wore during that period of time, um, by trying to create a unique identity for India at that period of time, after independence. So you see the international factor after independence also uh, influence making of the foreign policy, and now also international factor have been influencing us, but foreign policy hasn't made much changes. Okay, there are different actors which will be influencing, right from public, you say, even the foreign lobbies, foreign secretaries, parliament, various interest groups, and all, they will be influencing making of foreign policies. We talk about foreign lobbies. When you say foreign lobbies, it basically consists of espionage, foreign secretaries. Then we talk about the diplomats, right? And there are also foreign private interest group. They will always, what they will do actually, they will always try to um, mm, try to pay, or try to gift, try to bribe the ministers or policy makers, basically the policy makers and their key and kin, in order to get their, like, that's contract approval and all. So they also manage a foreign trip, and they also manage, you see, sometimes some hospitality for their key and kin, etc. So they usually does that. So they are also part of the lobby. When you talk about foreign lobby, which will always have an influence in the making of foreign policy. So foreign private interest group, apart from espionage means spies are there. We have also diplomats are there, foreign secretaries are there, they make a lobby. And also there are students and researcher who are working in international front, can also make a lobby. We have military and defense personnel, they can make a lobby. So they influence the execution of foreign policy. We also see that the kind of foreign policy we had during Indira Gandhi's time. So Indira Gandhi was also known as Iron Lady, and she took some decisions during that period of time. And her international, the acumen and keenness in terms of dealing with other countries and bilateral relation was commendable. Okay, so we actually see that at that point of time India was suffering from that poverty and even starvation. So we actually need loans for an assistance. And you see that World Bank and even US, we need to take foreign aid from US. World Bank has also given some money, but we need more aid. So then we had a contract with USA, and that contract was, public law for 48. About this. That is a public law PL 48. You see, so that was a contract under which we actually got some 60 million what food grains. We have actually imported that food grains, but at the expense of it, what we paid, we had to pay airtime. So that was a contract that we had to pay airtime uh, daily for 3 hours every day to Voice of America to relay their broadcast to India for 5 years. So that was the contract. You see the kind of propaganda. So right from the very beginning, and you also see it's a kind of cultural imperialism when we see the kind of policies. But you see that American lobbies, we also have an American lobbies here in India. Those lobbies are not only from consist of the diaspora. There are also pro-American journalists, pro-American professors, pro-American administrators. They want India to take help from USA, and then we have to pay. So for 5 years or even for 7 years. So from 1963. So for another 1970, we allow Voice of America to relay their broadcasting for 5 years, for 3 hours daily. Okay, so we sold our airtime. So that was also a kind of you see influence of foreign lobbies that can have on foreign policy. in terms of making decisions. Okay, so uh, that was one instance, I will say. And there are also actors like foreign, when you talk about foreign secretaries are there in Ministry of Information, Ministry of External Affairs, and they are also accompanied by deputy foreign secretary directors are there, huh, and assistant foreign secretaries. And many a time uh, we see that their work is based on hand to mouth approach and advising. There is no advisory body to actually give them advice on foreign policy issues, even to government. Although there are secretaries, so government doesn't have an advisory body to take help or take advices from them. So foreign secretaries will definitely one influencing factor in the making of foreign policy, but the approach is always based on that adhesion, and that is one nature. We have also historical committee, historical review committee. We have also one is I think a planning review committee. In the parliament, these committees are there, standing committees are there. They will also deal with foreign policy issues and try to influence government in terms of making foreign policy. Apart from interest group and the lobbies are there, pressure groups, Indian trade union, business union, military forces and military that union from, and also you see that various like military groups and the bodies and association from their front, they try to influence it. But we can only name, but how much influence they could have is also questionable. During Jawaharlal Nehru, he is the chief architect of Indian foreign policy. So when you talk about the foreign policy, Indian foreign policy is actually the result of Jawaharlal Nehru's charismatic personality, you see, because the kind of ideology that we talk about non-alignment, we were there in non-alignment, right? That was a result of his pursuit, his way of looking at things. So non-alignment is all about not aligning to any of the power blocks. So you talk about non-alignment in terms of not joining any military alliances, not allowing both the power blocks to have their base in our respective territory and to have independent decision making. That's what we call non-alignment, and that was a movement. It was created in 1961, and first it was started with Jawaharlal Nehru. Then we have that Egyptian, that Tito, and that Egyptian Nasser, and Yugoslovakia Premier Tito. Three of them have um, making that non-alignment movement a result, a reality. Okay, and we could actually see, and it was very successful in terms of attaining aid from both the power blocks. We had a lot of security issues. Okay, security issues like we have see the presence of US naval force in Indian Ocean. That is one security. And US support to Pakistan in 1965, in 1971, and even thereafter is also one security concern for us. Okay, and also we see that we have security issues from China, because China has been spreading anti-India propaganda among our neighborhood. That is also one security issues. China has been helping Pakistan to create atomic devices and to develop nuclear arsenal. That is also another security concern for us. That has been a security concern. It is not a very new phenomenon. It has been a security concern for us. And also we see the Myanmar is our neighborhood, and Myanmar doesn't have a democracy, but we do have a democracy. And we in India, in northeastern regions, insurgencies in the northeastern regions got supported from Myanmar, and that has happened because of the Chinese support and encouragement in Myanmar, it is usually said. And in the neighboring country, China is also trying to um, create anti-India propaganda in order to create an armed dragnet around India. And they are also supporting militarism in the neighboring countries in the neighborhood. Even China is also supporting the military regime of Bangladesh. India helped Bangladesh attain independence, but after the assassination of Mujibur Rahman, you see the Bangladesh has got all the support from even China as well as Pakistan, and to develop their anti-India sentiment. Even you see that anti-India sentiment is also continuing during Sheikh Hasina's regime. We get to find there is a drop down of anti-India sentiment, but there are some anti-India elements are there. Even in now also there are anti-India, strong anti-India elements are there, and these are getting supported from Pakistan and from even China. If you go like in abroad, no, if you go from that side, that definitely you have to go to Qatar, and also if this Doha, etc., from the Saudi Arabia and all, then you will, if you meet someone from Bangladesh, there are many people from Bangladesh are being employed in those airports. Okay. And there are many people from Pakistani are also but employed, but when we say that we are Indian, we are not welcome at times. No, that I have experienced in my visit to Morocco, and even I saw a Bangladeshi. They also said that why didn't I this does raise an issue. I forgot. It might be related to like Hindi or English. English, not English. No, don't. They asked me why didn't I say in speak in French. I asked him in English. So later I come to learn that he's a Bangladeshi. He has been working there. So he asked why didn't I speak in French, or that is a Portuguese. Morocco as a French colony, right? So that is the kind of question I also encounter. So that Bangladesh has a anti-India element, which is also now continuing, and now that boycott India good in 2024, you have already seen in Bangladesh there is a boycott India good movement carried out, making India out. So there is always a pressure against India. So that has happened because of China and because of India. If you see from a very like uh, raw eyes that this is the one that China has insinuating that kind of tendency, anti-element tendency in Bangladesh as well as in Nepal also. We see whatever is happening in Nepal, and border dispute is there regarding the Kalahandi and also late Mog, that two area, Kalapani, sorry, Kalapani and all. So they also media is reporting from nationalist credentials, from nationalist point of view, but there is also a youth discourse which is recently developed. They said that India is an equal partner with us, and we can get lot of benefits from India. Even we can get aid from India in terms of, you say, trade, innovations and governance. That's what youth discourse in Nepal nowadays. So these are the some security concerns, and it has been there. It is not something very new. Uh, and when you talk about the security concern, it is all about having a peaceful environment, internal as well as external. So, security happens to be one important national issue and as well as national interest. So, when we discuss the determinants of foreign policy, first is to safeguard um, our territorial integrity and sovereignty, and that is the sole concern of India. And hence, here security is the prime issue, and how will you maintain the security is also important. One is through hard power, one is also through soft power, you know. So basically it is related to hard power. People say it is related to hard power, but we also have an ideological basis to look at security, because we want a peaceful environment, right, and free from any kind of chaos and internal cohesion. We want internal cohesion, free from chaos. We want stability. Okay. And that is important, and hence we develop that norm to have their own unique identity. That will also contribute not to have any military base within the Indian territory. That is a NAM principle. We do not allow any military base within Indian territory from the two superpower, because we are not bending ourselves both this power. We are unique, and we don't want to become a nation of non-consequence. We want to have some identity, and hence we are non-aligned, but we want to receive aid and also economic benefits from both of you. So we will look for aid because we are newly independent country. So we need aid. So we'll look for aid from both your end, but we are not supporting your military base. We are not joining your military alliance. Now, when you talk about this NATO and a CATO, NATO is a NATO CATO. These are military alliances of America and Soviet Union. So India also refused to join, and these military alliances are related to collective defense mechanism. When you talk about collective defense, it is all about they consider one country as an enemy and they unite themselves against that one enemy. India believe in collective security. India believe in United Nation organization, UN, international community, in terms of, you see, supporting and protecting a victim country and fight against the aggressor. Instead of joining in a collective defense, all against one, India believe in all for one or one for all. So that was India's principle, you might say, apart from tolerance, apart from that's what right means and right ends, ahimsa, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So these are also some of the principles through which India tried to create a strategic space, and try to enhance our identity, and also let people know about our aspirations, our preferences, etc. Now, in this context, I will again bring in the concept. I'll not again because I brought in that concept called the that um, the Nick Sharma issue, that newspaper, the Netherlands issue and all. Huh. So so there is also history behind it. You should know about the history because India is the one who raised voice against Netherlands in the USA to even give freedom to Indonesia. So India has a very strong role in United Nation organization. So India raised voice against colonialism. India raised voice against racialism. India raised voice against all the newly independent decolonial decolonized countries who did not get admission into United Nation organization. So India has a role in international communication after right after it got independence. Vijay Lakshmi Pandit happened to be the president of General Assembly, right? And she was the sister of Jawaharlal Nehru. And then we also see we had certain issues because we always advocated for world peace and peaceful settlement of dispute. So when we talk about peaceful settlement of dispute here, we emphasize more on peace, huh, rather than settlement, because India also believe in peace. India says that peace is more important than deadlock, and even deadlock is more important than a situation like war. So that's what India believes in. So India always emphasized on peace, and any kind of violation of peace is also a violation or of that contract um, of humanity, an international contract or something. Okay, that's a different issue. Now you see that India's role in United Nations were varied. First, India also served as a chairman of Neutral Nations Repatriation Commission in North Korea. India also that host many prisoners of war, and we had also a very role in terms of um, making newly independent nation admitted to into United Nation organization. China is one. China did not get admission into United Nation organization. India fought for China. Kuomintang China, KMT China did not get admission. India fought for China and China got admission. Okay, so you see the role over the years, India happened to play a very ideological role. India's role was ideological, more than you see the realist. And we were against the arm race. So disarmament is also another, this is a policy that India had. And when India also adopted non-alignment, India raised its disarmament policy. So when you say disarmament, it is all about banning and stopping the existing armament and arms and ammunitions, not to develop arms and ammunitions. So India believed in that. India also stood for, now also it's standing for arm control. Arm control is different from disarmament. India is of the belief that we need to control arm for future peace, so not to develop any arms and ammunitions in future. So that was India's policy. But you see that APJ Abdul Kalam Azad has a different, understanding altogether. He has a different belief system. He also said that strength appreciates strength, and hence we need to employ science and technology to make India stronger and self-reliance in terms of nuclear capability. And we have already seen that China, Pakistan, and our neighborhood have developed nuclear capability. So India has also developed nuclear capability. It was hesitant a bit. Initially, it was hesitant to even explode it for peaceful purpose. But in 1998, after 1974, it tried it, tested it for peaceful purpose. Then in 1999, and officially it has tested, in Pokhran, and that nuclear, and also announced that we are nuclear capable state. So like that we have diverse factor. So to be very brief, we see now, so there's so many things to discuss with foreign policy. First, to understand is the determinants. What are the determinants is important. Determinants, economic determinants is there. Our political traditions, political tradition is always inspired by idealism and realism. Nehru happened to be the one charismatic leader with a towering personality, and he has relegated all foreign secretaries, ministries, and his cabinet to simply footnote of diplomacy. So he is also one who is the chief architect of Indian foreign policy. We talk about the geographical factors. We also talk about the international factors and the security concerns, which will help us to determine how foreign policy will be. Then we talk about certain principles. When you say the principles, our principles are aligned to non-alignment. Why aligned to non-alignment? Hence, we say that we oppose all kind of racism. We oppose all kind of all forms of colonialism. We oppose all forms of racism. We also deny to be a part of any military alliances. We also help Afro-Asian nations, which were newly independent, in helping them getting admission in the United Nation organization, getting membership of United Nation organization. We also support human rights, because when we talk about like racism in South Africa, that was the case actually. We raised voice against the South Africa, and India's voice was so very strong that lead to UN impose that sanctions, economic sanctions, many countries economic sanction on South Africa. Okay, because many Indians in South Africa were also suffered. So India feel concerned about that, and India's policy itself says that we are against racism. So that was the uniqueness that India maintained at that point of time. Now, if you bring in the issues of this newspapers, that international newspaper that displaying snake charmers, that issues, and then we talk about the cultural imperialism and all. So it is also an issue related to enabling uh, yourself to participate into the information flow. If you are not participating into the information flow to project your identity, you will be identified in that way only. Are you getting that? So my point of view, it's slightly different. It's not something that I'm not denying cultural imperialism. It has been there, but in India tried to carve separate identity through non-alignment. Non-alignment become irrelevant after disintegration of Soviet Union in 1990s. We actually jumped to pro-liberalizations. We also see non-alignment become irrelevant because it actually came into exist during Cold War. But again, we also see that when we talk of cultural imperialism, one thing is very important, that India also support the NUCO. What does NUCO said? India support NUCO, and USA said that NUCO is inspired by Soviet Union. So in US denied Neoco. Huh. And India supported Neoco. That is also a part of non-alignment stance of India. India support human rights. Okay, that is also a part of non-alignment stance. Okay, so all the principles that we usually have in terms of our foreign policy principles derive from that non-alignment stance. Okay, so it is important here. So when you talk about the Neoco, so we see McBride Commission came. There is an imbalances in the information flow, right? They have actually McBride Commission tried to read the report of and also report that is a report was on, basically they actually tried to find out the imbalances of information flow, then communication status across the globe, and they come up with a report and a proposal, and there mention the importance of plurality of the media, and also remove the concentration of media, and also importance of journalistic freedom and freedom of press. It is also very important. Developed nation will also recognize the will of developing nation to develop and help them in getting due status in the international front, due identity in the international front. At the same time, it is also equally the right of the developing nation to develop their infrastructures, to also try to develop themselves, to develop their manpower to train themselves. So the motivations, the interest of developing nation is also very important, and willingness of developed nation is also important to make developing nation at par with developed nation. It was mentioned in the McBride Commission's report, apart from freedom of praise, freedom of journalism, plurality of the newses, not to have any concentration of media, and also make media even elimination of all kind of media concentration. And it is also important to have McBride Commission highlighted to have to make nation, or to make nation create an identity, cultural identity for its own, and enable itself to take part in the information flow, and to let the world know about our aspirations, our culture, our preferences, our civilizations, our values. So that was being highlighted. And it has emphasized on the rights of each and every community to get access to information and take part into the communication process. So if you look from that point of view, if you are given a chance to express yourself, you take that chance. If you're not taking that chance to create your own identity, so they have already injected that value system called cultural imperialism. We look you from this lens, you have been looking as exoticized, because that is what cultural imperialism, India and East is always being looked as savage or exoticized by the West. That's an Oriental concept. uh, and also there is a cultivation. For long they have been trying to giving that kind of exposure to create a kind of image about this India. So they consider it their freedom of expressions. And if we see that here, it is also another narrative, counter narrative. We talk about human rights. huh. So like that way there are a lot of issues, so you can also deliberate on it. You can have your own issues if you want to, otherwise leave it. Anything you want to say? Yeah. No? Arjun, anything you want to say?